Hi, it's Shar with another insider secret for how to co-parent with a narcissist or sociopath. And this is like my third attempt to make this video, and one thing or another keeps going wrong, so I keep thinking maybe I need to fine-tune that message. So I think that you're getting the cream of the crop with this message. So when we're looking at co-parenting with a narcissist, now what you have to understand is co-parenting normally is where you're on the same team and you're kind of in a divide and conquer and putting the children's need ahead of your own and making sure that their best interest comes first. Well, that's not possible with a narcissist or a sociopath. It's just not something they are familiar with. They don't know how to do it, and they don't even realize some of the situations that they're creating. And so I've got three different perspectives I'm going to be sharing with you. One as a child of a narcissist, one my narcissist number one I had children with, so how I co-parented with him, and then on narcissist number two, we didn't have any children together, but we did try to combine our families, and there were some stepchildren involved, and I'm going to give you some tips for all of them. I know with being parented by a narcissist, what I know growing up is that she had completely, she just left and moved to another city, state, and my dad didn't know where I was at. So he wasn't an active presence in my life when I was younger, and she had her reasons for doing that, but she didn't ever have anything good to say about him. And I remember hearing just bad stories about him, and you know, that was her reality, is that she didn't like him and that he was just a bad guy. So, you know, as far as when you have children and what we're teaching our children, don't do that, okay? Because we ultimately are the ones who picked this person to have children with, and the kids didn't have anything to do with it. And so putting down or talking bad about your ex is absolutely unacceptable, and you shouldn't be doing it. Now, that doesn't mean the other side won't be doing it back, because they probably will, but you can't control that. You can just balance and know that we're putting the kids first. So the my narc number one that I had children with, there was just no co-parenting with him. I wasn't good enough when I was with him, so I'm definitely not going to be good enough now that I'm not with him and that I've moved on. But it's just not possible to do no contact with him, because if you try, then they start using the kids to send messages through the kids, and even when you don't, there's still things that they use the kids to kind of control situations. And so you just need to know, with a narcissist that you actually have children with, you have to use a method called gray rock. And it's going to be really hard, because every step of the way there's going to be different tactics that they use. I know that in my instance, the more control he lost as far as being able to control me, the more he found ways to control me through the children, and still does to this day. So I know some very frustrating realities is like our child support. It was never paid on the same day every month. There were some months where I would be paid like June 1st, and then the next month I wouldn't get the payment till July 31st. And so it was almost 2 months, and there was really nothing that the child support services or anybody would do, because he wasn't 30 days late. And so there's still ways that he was able to control and create just a lot of chaos and extra stress that wasn't needed, but it was just part of my reality. And so my advice for getting over that is, I mean, there was nothing I can do. He loved hearing stories of how we were struggling or how I really needed the money, and that fed him more. And when I got to the point where I picked up extra jobs and got ahead of the ball curve of, I didn't need that payment every month. I needed the payment, but I got a month ahead, and was able to take that back, so I wasn't asking for it all the time. And that was not easy to do, because I truly was just living paycheck to paycheck to paycheck when the kids were little. And so trying to get ahead of that ball curve so that that doesn't become an issue, because they like that feed and that energy that they're getting, and don't give it to them. Because remember, we're a gray rock, and gray rocks don't respond to money issues. They just sit there. Some other tactics is when the kids had holidays or they had school things. At first I would get to, because I was active in the school as a Girl Scout leader and I had other things going on, so I'd get there first. And what I noticed was that he was sitting as far as possible from me as he could get in the same room. And so it almost made, it goes back to their splitting theory, where it's yes, no, black and white, there's no in between. And it would make the kids choose you know, who they're going to go sit by, or if they only had a few moments to speak, they had to choose where they were going to go, because he would never sit by me. So I learned to let him get there first and let him get settled, and then I would go and sit by him and be a gray rock again. I wasn't walking in being a rock star, being kind of showboaty. I would just walk in and slide in, not right next to him, but somewhere in the general vicinity. So then the kids, when they would come, they didn't have to go very far between the two of us. I know that, I mean, on holidays, there was a court-ordered schedule we were supposed to follow, but it never got followed. And in my case, I mean, there was one time where he pulled up on Easter and didn't know he was coming. The kids hadn't seen him. And so if I didn't let the kids go, who would have been the bad guy? That would have been me. And so it was really hard to not buy in and not get all emotional. And I know there were a few times I dropped the ball through the process because I didn't see something coming, or I, you know, in the minute might have stomped my foot, or, you know, not handled it the way I would have in hindsight. But just know that's why they do those things. And so co-parenting with a narcissist is just not possible. They're not on your side. They're not even on the side of the kids. They're on their own side. And if they can find an opportunity to use the kids to get some kind of extra feed or reaction from you, they will. And so truly, when you're co-parenting with a narcissist, you have to go gray rock as much as possible and not feed into them. Try to wean them from using you as an energy source, and let them go on and find somebody else, and limit your opportunities to interact with them, to speak with them. I know there came a time where my ex would call me and I would say, if this doesn't have anything to do with the kids, then we really don't need to be talking about it. And really creating very clear boundaries of where his part and his interaction in my life was allowed. And there was a lot of tests along the way. I remember the kids telling me, I bought a new house, and the kids told me that they were at home, but their dad was taking a nap on my couch in my new house. And I didn't care for him to be in my house. But again, putting the kids in the middle, I never told them that because I didn't want to put them in the middle, but he knew. And in those moments are just things that you just have to bite your tongue and find ways in the moment to have conversations with the kids and say, you know what, this is mommy's house, daddy has his house. I really don't care to have daddy in mom's house or visiting. And what was funny is, as soon as I created that boundary, he did the same, and I was never welcomed at his house either. And there was a lot of just moments where they just they used the kids to get the accolades and to build them up, and with little to no disregard to you. And what you have to know is that you just take the high road, do gray rock. I know with my kids, with their graduation party, with our first one that graduated, I had a party, and then he threw a party, and nobody came to my party because she hadn't invited people to my party. She invited them to her dad's party. And so when our second child graduated, I reached out to my ex to say, hey, I'd be willing to split the cost of a graduation party if he wanted to host it. And he lived in the little city that the kids graduated from. I lived outside of it, so we can have it at his house. I'd be willing to split cost, help with anything. And I was told no, that he would go ahead and host it, and I wasn't even invited. And so that was a really hard pill to swallow, because their graduation events and their graduation party, he got to kind of swoop in right at the end and get all the accolades from it. And the definite boundary of I wasn't invited, and the kids very clearly knew that and told me that I was not allowed to come, and I didn't. I could have, you know, shown up and caused all kinds of commotion, but this is the deal. That was their day, and it wasn't mine. And as long as they're being celebrated, that's truly all that mattered. And was it easy in the moment? No, it wasn't easy in the moment. But guess what? I had all the memories from the day-to-day activities that led up to that point. And so I didn't need to have the accolades at the end. I can let him have it. And as long as my children are doing better, or my children are getting the experience of having a graduation party, it was thumbs up for both of them. So once I was able to kind of detach from that, and that hurt, but I also knew that there's going to be future events that he can't exclude me from. Our children getting married, our kids having babies. Those are things that eventually he's going to have to overcome this control issue, especially as they start launching and having control and say on those items in their life. And all I can do is kind of walk the walk. And even in the moment where they may not have appreciated or understood why I allowed things or took a hands-off approach, looking back in hindsight as they grow older, they will. So just know, with a narcissist, when you're co-parenting, it's completely gray rock. You can't give in to a lot of it. You have to just kind of get your ego out of the way and let them be in control and do what's best for the kids. Now, this is never, ever at the expense of the safety or what is best for your children, because when it comes to that, I would completely go off board and be loud, and it's my babies, they come first. Now, when I co-parented with my narcissistic narc number 2, what I noticed about him is I had pretty clear boundaries, and my children were a little older, and what I noticed about him is when we first started dating, my kids were fantastic, and then once we got married, that mask came off, and he didn't like any of them. All of them did something wrong, and I had really great kids. They were really good kids, so I didn't understand why this change happened, to the point of, I remember coming home, and he is screaming in my college child's face that she's a mooch, and I don't know why she's a mooch, because she worked hard, she's going to school, she's not a mooch. And just constantly criticizing her and belittling her and putting her down. And ultimately, behind the scenes, what he was mad about was that we would spend time together. And he wanted me to only spend time with him. And if he found out that I spent time with anybody else, he got jealous of that. And so there was a direct attack on each of my children. And passive-aggressive things. My youngest daughter had a 16th birthday party scheduled at our house, and he hid all the remotes the day of her party, and then wouldn't answer his phone that night, and just did things like that. That was almost like I had another child. And when it came to issues that would require, like, his son did something that got him into a lot of trouble at school, and I wanted to sit down and have a family meeting so everybody knew what was going on, because my children were starting to be asked what was going on, and he wanted to kind of sweep it under the rug and didn't want to talk about it. And I had said, you know what, I'm going to give you about 2 days to come up with this, and if you don't, then I'm going to tell my kids, because I don't lie to my kids. This is the family atmosphere, this is where we can be accepted and where we can be who we want to be. And we weren't on the same page of that. He just wanted to kind of brush it away, not deal with it, not talk with it, and create triangulation and divide. And that's one of their tactics that they're very comfortable with. So even outside the family, they do it better, but inside the family, they start creating these conversations and planting seeds and turning people against each other. And I never heard him speak very highly of his children's mothers. And as a matter of fact, at times he would almost be scheming to find ways to make them mad or get a reaction. And when he would win or when he would get a reaction, it was almost like he would scream touchdown, because he got what he wanted. And it was always using the children to orchestrate that. Now, I didn't see any of that behavior at the beginning. It was just once we got married and he got comfortable with removing his mask that I started seeing those tactics. And it was another element that came into place of realizing this is not for me, and you absolutely do not get to talk to my children like that. And it was very different co-parenting with a narcissistic ex. I mean, my youngest daughter, he would always have her do dishes. We were supposed to have a rotating clock of who did chores, and I had always taught my children that, you know what, while you don't have to like him, you will respect him, and you have to listen to him, and you can't talk back. And if something happens when I'm not home, we'll talk about it when I get home, but you need to respect him in the moment. And so one thing that he was just constantly doing is he would have my daughter do the dishes, which was everybody hates doing the dishes. But every single day she would come home, even on meals that she didn't cook or she wasn't there to eat, he would make her do the dishes, and she would do them. And then when I would get home, because I was busy in real estate, she would tell me about it, and then I'd go have a talk with him, and his thing was, well, you know what, if you were here, you could have done something about it. So he was using the children in a passive-aggressive way, even to take jabs at me through that process. And so just know that co-parenting with a narcissist, even co-parenting stepchildren, you need to have very clear boundaries. And I remember telling my narcissist number 2 that I am not their mother. They have a mother, and they have a very good mother at that. And that my job is to help support him when he can't do his job. Meaning, if he has to work a little bit late, you need me to go pick up kids or drop them off, that's fine. But it's not my job to be their dad. That's what your job is. And I have really clear understandings and lines of what is going to happen as co-parenting for me. But he didn't like them so much, and he tried to change them. So with co-parenting co-children, and I mean, he was just pulling kids in left and right and trying to get them. He did get his children very involved in our divorce and very in the know of what was going on. And which case, this is the sad part, is that no matter how much you love the stepchildren, his children, in the end, those are his children. And I don't want to do anything that would create any kind of divide or misunderstanding. And I would rather them think bad of me than for them to think bad of the reality of the father that they have. And so again, you're going to take the high road, keep your mouth quiet. And I mean, with my own children, there was enough damage that I needed to fix that I really didn't have to worry about his kids. I just want no contact with all of them, because there wasn't anything good that it could have come from any contact, even if it was in a loving way reaching out to his children whom I loved, but it would have created confusion, and I didn't want that for them. So know that when you're thinking about co-parenting with a narcissist, not possible. So you just got to go to your tactics of how are you going to get through the moment. And remember that, you know what, we picked this person to have a child with or children with, not the kids. And so we're always going to make sure that we put them first. And what's best for them would be for them to have happy, healthy relationships with both parents and not divide. And even though you might be the only parent who is encouraging and creating those loving relationships, in the end, what will happen is, because you've walked the walk, years from now, your children will look back and appreciate you for doing it and becoming in a hard time, being the anchor that they needed to weather the storm. And I say anchor because, you know, when the kids are being tossed around in this process of, my children's father will throw a lot of money at them, and that's not something I would ever do. When you're 19 years old, to have a parent throw a lot of money at you, who wouldn't want that? And so allowing a little grace and giving a lot of love through that process, even when they're doing and saying things they don't necessarily mean, but in time knowing they're going to grow up and they're going to get an adult perspective of all this. And again, even then, you don't want to create divide, but you just kind of gear them to understanding that, you know what, there's a lot of great things about your dad, and there's a lot of great things about your mom. They're just different. And so if you need money and you need things and you want somebody to throw a lot of money on you, it's a great time to go talk to dad. If you need an encourager and a cheerleader and you need somebody to be there on a hard day and kind of do the hard work with you, I'm going to be the one that's going to be there. And the piece that I found in the moment was, if I felt any divide, or if I felt that he was dividing me and from my children, I remember finding comfort in knowing that my children aren't thirsty for me, that their cup for me was filled because I was a constant present source in their life that gave them love, and that they're so comfortable with my relationship with them that they can test it, and they can go without talking to me, and they can say things that they probably don't mean, but in the moment they feel they do, because they're so solid in who I am and what our relationship is, that they can test that tether. But the relationship with their dad isn't nearly as strong. And so there's times where they have to choose him, or they feel like they need to favor him because they're so thirsty for him that in that moment they get a gulp. And I'm so happy that they got the gulp and that they got their needs met in the moment. And I know that this would all make a healthy, happy adult down the road, because at the end, we can't have enough people loving our babies. So just know, if you're trying to co-parent with a narcissist, it's tough. Keep searching and watching videos. Go gray rock. You know, a tactic, you might text something, write something out, and send it to yourself just so you can get your thoughts out of you. Try to not do it in front of the kids. I know I had renamed my children's dad to Stan, not meant shoot, that ain't nothing, S-T-A-N, in front of my kids and in front of my girlfriends. I wouldn't say their dad's name, I would say Stan, so that the kids didn't necessarily know who I was talking about, and they probably thought I was dating somebody. At one point I remember my ex coming back asking me if I was, and that was kind of funny. So just know, have some fun along the way. Surround yourself with a lot of girlfriends or good friends. If you're a guy, surround yourself with some people that you can really just get raw and real with, and keep searching the knowledge of how do you get through this, because with knowledge your mind expands. As your mind expands, it can never go back to what it was, and nobody can take knowledge from you. Because with knowledge comes clarity and understanding, and when you have clarity and understanding, you can have peace. Peace is very, very, very important. So you guys know what? Remember that we are all powerful. You're all powerful right now as you are, your beautiful self today. You don't need to do anything else other than to just embrace who you are. and that we're all connected. And that through that, I hope that you feel love so that you can turn around and go love somebody else. Right now, you need to start with yourself. And talk to you next time. Bye.